What up, what up?
Yeah, I was gonna say you're gonna make a post or
Yep. We're
me too.
live. Matt Reilly.
When I was in tennis, I was actually missing those morning talks lately. When I first joined Discord and joined the group, I would join and just kind of listen in the background. And then for like the last week, I was actually really into it. So when I was in Tennessee with my wife, I was actually sitting there going, man, I actually missed the morning coffee talks with Bob.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird not having it. I would open up the Discord app and I would see you guys talking, but I couldn't actually tune in, and I felt like I had FOMO, fear of missing out. I was missing it for sure.
Welcome on.
I hear you.
Definitely take this opportunity to invite somebody you think would benefit from joining and listening in to this creative mastermind, Mr. Matt Reilly. This gentleman has a $1.2 million portfolio deal in the works here. I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, hopefully I don't have to yell at any attorneys here today anymore.
Well, fantastic.
You guys hear me?
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for volunteering to host the event, Cody, and coordinating everything. My man, take it away.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Cody.
Yes, sir. How's it going, Matt? How's it going? Having a good day today?
Trying to patch up. I don't know how far along everybody is in their business and everything else, but do your taxes, do them correct. Make sure you got all your business expenses and everything set up correctly, because that's what I'm dealing with right now, and it can be brutal if you leave it off too long. So I always tell people, take this, whether you're wholesaling, investing, whatever you're doing, take it serious. Treat it like a business. Treat it like somewhat of a career. Get your LLCs correct, and do your taxes the way they're supposed to be done. Because it's a pain in the ass for sure. But that's basically what I've been doing: is taxes, tax preparation for this year or next year, and trying to finish up that portfolio sale that I have going on. I was hoping it was going to close last week, and it didn't, and spoke to the attorney this morning, and hopefully it closes at the end of next week, but we're close. We're there.
So from what I understand is you're trying to do a creative deal on this 21 million portfolio.
Yeah, so I wish it was 21 million. So it's a 21 unit. It's a portion of my portfolio. Yeah, we'll be there one day. Don't worry. Just replay this next year when it's 21 million. But yeah, I have a portion of my portfolio that I'm selling. I could sell it traditionally. I could piece it off and sell it on the market one by one, but obviously that would take forever. And so I was able to create a structure that made sense, a seller finance structure. And I mean, again, seller financing is so powerful when you actually understand it and understand how to utilize it correctly. So obviously we all know you guys are calling every day, whether it's wholesaling, investing, whatever it is. We all know it's a tough market right now. We know interest rates are high. We know the market is down. Mortgage applications are at an all-time low, all of the things that go into it. So market time is up. So if I were to sell these properties traditionally, I'm risking long market time. I'm risking someone coming in and offering under ask, seller credits, and they're going to say the same things that I say when I make phone calls. Hey man, you know what the market is. You know what it is. I got to come in 20 grand less or 100 grand less or whatever that is. So seller financing is a powerful tool because I can get the price that I want because I'm giving terms to that buyer. I'm giving them the flexibility. I can move numbers around creatively that a traditional buyer can't do. So I was actually able to get full asking and actually above full asking by doing a seller finance deal. So it's going to be nice. It'll end up getting me $1.2 million. That's what I'll receive. And then I'm actually doing interest only payments over the next 60 months, which is a little over $200,000. So total will be about $1.3 million that I'll get to the seller financing of the portfolio. and I wouldn't have received probably. I probably would have gotten 25% less than that had I done it traditionally, and it wouldn't have happened over. It would have happened over the next 6 months of me selling one by one, doing showings, and each contract and each agreement, it would have been absolutely terrible. So I was able to bulk it all together, and pretty much it was supposed to be a 14-day close. We're on week 3, but it's okay. We're right there. So I'm happy about that. And again, the power of seller financing once you understand it is huge.
It very much is, man. And it's really starting to become a big spreading thing throughout the whole nation right now. So it's getting bigger and bigger.
Don't I know it? You guys are, every time I talk to an agent, every time I talk to a seller, all I get told is, yeah, we've talked to 50 of you guys already. Hey, we've already, so the word is out there for sure. The word is out there. Again, just going back to I should get it tattooed somewhere on my body or my head, like know your shit. We touched on it last time. So obviously I love I love how interactive this group is. I love how obviously people are go-getters because they're making the calls, because the people I'm talking to on the other end, whether it's the agent or the seller, is saying like, I'm getting a lot of phone calls for seller financing. I'm getting a lot of calls that are similar to yours. So I know people are out there making those calls. Again, just know your shit. When you're making those seller finance calls, make sure you know what you're talking about. Make sure you know what you're doing, because you're only making it harder for that next guy, like myself, when I make that call. And they're like, yeah, I was going to do it, but the previous guy burned me because he didn't know what he was doing and he messed up the deal or didn't know what to do with the next steps. And so just know your shit, because it'll only help you. And if you don't get it done, it at least helps that next guy when they make that call. So that's been the biggest thing, is just getting through that of like, yeah, I've already talked to 50 of you guys. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you have, which is good. Again, the word is out there. Just know what you're actually talking about, know how to structure the deals, because again, it can be powerful. It absolutely can. I just did a $1.1 million deal in Mesa, Arizona, where again, to yesterday's price was $1.1 million for this house. It's a business associate of mine. We've done a couple deals together. He wanted 1.1 million, but he admitted to me, he's like, that's probably last year's price, maybe a year and a half ago's price of 1.1. Today, it's probably 950, maybe a little bit lower. He has a mortgage on the property for like 600 grand. And so he's like, if you could get me $150,000 down and we could structure some terms, he's like, I'd absolutely be willing to do seller financing. And I was like, I can get you 1.1 million if we do seller financing. So I was able to put a structure together, found a buyer within 48 hours or less, and that closed at the end of March, and everybody walked away happy. So the guy ends up buying a $1.1 million house. He knows that it's maybe not worth 1.1 million, but we were able to give him good enough terms for a long enough period of time where he's going to be safe and protected. He gets this big, beautiful house on terms, and my seller ends up selling his house for 1.1 million, which in the traditional market would not have sold for 1.1 million. Closed it in 14 days, gets a down payment, gets a monthly payment, and now everybody walks away happy. So again, if you structure it correctly, it's beautiful and works extremely powerfully. But again, don't be upset if a seller doesn't want to do it. I just attempted to do my personal purchase. My wife and I just moved. We went to Tennessee, like I was telling you, and we just got back, and we actually want to buy a house there. And so I did my due diligence. I did my research. I went on PropStream. I looked up their mortgage information, how long they've owned it, who the seller is, other properties that they own. I put together a nice little structure, and I was close. They said no at first, and then I restructured it and came back. And so they ultimately said no as of right now. We'll see how it plays out here in the next few days. But I think it's good for everything. But again, it's not going to work every time, and that's okay.
Okay.
A lot of people get really upset when it doesn't work out. They're like, how does the seller not know that this is such a great benefit for them and the tax benefits and all that kind of stuff? And it's like, sometimes they just don't give a shit. Yeah. I've had sellers literally tell me, I've explained it for 25 minutes on the phone, the ins and outs, the greats of it, all the things. And they told me, like, I'd rather write a check at closing. I'd rather lose money at closing to do this deal with you. Sometimes sellers just don't care. So again, just don't lose sleep over it. If you can't convince somebody to do a seller finance deal, it's okay. Just move on to the next one. It's going to be okay. So this one, it's because it's a personal purchase, because I would actually live in the property, it hurts a little bit. I always say leave emotions out of real estate, but this one does hurt a little bit. I know it would be a good deal for them, but like I said, we'll see how it plays out here in the next couple of days.
Anyway, I'm sending the good luck your way. I hope they are able to close, or at least willing to make some sort of deal.
Yeah, man.
How many is that you're trying to buy? Just like, is this only on one, like a single family, or is this on a big, like a portfolio, or?
No, this is a personal single family, so just to live in. So my wife and I, I lived in Chicago for like 12 years or so. Together, we lived in Chicago for probably 8 or so years. And then we just sold our condo in the city like 2 years ago, moved out to the suburbs. We're renting right now because we weren't sure what we wanted to do, whether we wanted to stay in the city or stay in Illinois altogether. So we're renting right now. And then we took a trip to Tennessee just to kind of check it out. I've never been there. And Tennessee is,
that's awesome.
Anybody in Tennessee,
beautiful.
I hope you understand how absolutely lucky you are. Like, that place is crazy.
It is really gorgeous.
The people, oh my God. I've never said Jesus Christ and oh my God so much in my life just while driving around.
Yeah.
There's so much money in the South. There's just so much. It's absolutely crazy now. Yeah, Brett, Florida was the other option. So I'm getting burnt out by Chicago winters. I've been here my whole life. And so it was either Tennessee and Florida. Yeah. And so we did Tennessee first. And you're in Florida now. I just saw like some crazy Fort Lauderdale flooding going on, and it's absolutely insane. So I understand the extremes of Florida, but we went to Tennessee, and like I said, I said, "Oh my God," probably 5,000 times while we were there. Every time we were driving down a road, I was like, "Oh my God!" Just the rolling trees and the forest, and they look like mountains, and the huge houses. I mean, it's absolutely wild. So this would be a single family purchase to live there. So again, it might work, it might not, but it's okay. But I would love, that's what I've been telling myself for the last year is I live and breathe the seller finance stuff and the creative and the sub two. And so the goal was to do my personal property creatively or sub two in some sort of capacity. So that's why it stings a little bit more. But again, if it works, it works. If not, we'll see how it goes.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, I'm actually originally, I'm from Aurora, Illinois. And then I've been to Florida, baby, my whole life, though. I was born over there, and then at a young kid, just came over to Florida. So Florida, where I stay.
So Tennessee will be the best of both worlds, hopefully, if it all works out, because then it's only a couple hours to Florida, 5-6 hours. 5-6 hours here. I'm in Wisconsin. I'm in Michigan. I'm in Ohio, places I don't want to be. No offense to anybody who lives there. I'm just burnt out by here and everything else. So, that's pretty much where we're at. And so the point.
Are you able to do seller financing in any creative? Do you do a lot of creative deals when you do your Section 8 deals?
Yeah, so that's a good, because especially, so a lot of what I was purchasing here in the last couple of years, prior to COVID especially, I was still picking up properties for 60, 70,000. So depending on what my strategy was, there were certain points where loans were just too hard to get at that point with the low loan balance. So I was either paying like an extremely high interest rate, or I was paying points, or just it was hard to find lenders that would even lend that low. So you really had no option but to do it creatively. And so the good thing is with that is, I shouldn't say a lot, but their sellers know, like trailer parks, right? Like mobile homes. There's certain asset types, laundromats. Those sellers of those properties, those owners of those properties know that financing on those properties are difficult. They know, like a laundromat, it's difficult to get financing because it's a coin and cash business. The books are usually bad or not accurate. And so it's really hard to get loans for those. So those sellers and owners are more open to creative financing, seller financing, things like that, because they know that's really the only way that they're going to be able to sell it. The SBA, the Small Business Administration or Association, they lend on certain things, but not really. So they're more open to it. So the same with Section 8 or the low income or the low purchase price properties, same way. They know that it's going to be difficult. So the standard $100,000 and above loan balance loans, let's just use round numbers. They're getting 5% interest rates. Sub $100,000, those people are getting 7% interest rates or above. Obviously not in this market, but they're getting the worst terms, and so it's harder to cash flow, obviously, because we're getting worse terms. So those sellers of those types of properties are more willing and able to do seller financing, creative financing, because they know that their buyer pool is much smaller. If you have a turnkey single family for $250,000 in a regular market like here in Illinois, your buyer pool is the size of this bedroom wall. You have first-time home buyers, you have FHA, you have VA, you have conventional, you have all of these people that could qualify for that property and who it fits for, where the sub $100,000 stuff, the buyer pool, it just starts getting smaller and smaller. So seller financing is huge on those. And the great thing is, again, with seller financing is you can create those terms. So again, if I got to go get traditional financing on a sub $100,000 loan, my interest rate is going to be 2 to 3 percentage points higher than the standard market, plus paying points, plus all these other things that play into consideration. So now I can structure my own terms with you. I can have a 4% rate. I can have a 0% rate. I can do all those things. So I've definitely done it all on the Section 8 stuff, and it's huge because it goes from a non-cash flowing property to now a cash flowing property. And what's great is majority of people don't know how to structure seller finance or don't even know about seller financing. So and that property's listed on the market, other Section 8 investors are looking at that and going, that doesn't cash flow because I'd have to go get an 8% interest rate for that. Well, they don't know how to structure a seller finance. So 90% of the market is looking at it and saying, no, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't cash flow. Somebody like myself and anybody else here can look at that and go, oh, actually, if I do a seller finance here and I structure it this way and I can give myself a 4% rate and whatever the numbers are, oh, now it cash flows. Now it makes sense. Now I can take those numbers in my spreadsheet. I can make a nice little presentation, send that over to the seller or to the listing agent and say, hey, man, this is what I'm willing to do here. Does this make sense? And it opens up doors. Again, you're kind of like the minority. You're the person that knows something exists when nobody else does. So that's why I think it's powerful to have that tool in your tool pouch.
Very true.
What criteria do you use to confirm that a lead could potentially be taken down sub 2? Yeah, good question, PDRE. So basically, I have filters set up. I won't share my screen, but I have filters set up. Couple filters depending on the type of search that it is, but the primary ones is the equity. So usually I do 15% or less in equity from if it's on market, from purchase price, from the asking price to the current equity they have or the current loan balance they have on their mortgage. If that's 15% or less, that hits my filter. If it's in a specific market, that hits my filter. Obviously, if it's a 3-bed 1-bath or 3-bed 2-bath, that hits my filter. Can you hear me? Hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So once it hits that filter, once it's the 15% or less of equity, I download that list off PropStream. I upload it to my spreadsheet that I have here, and I have quote unquote smart formula in my spreadsheet. And so once I put it in my spreadsheet, it'll say true or false. If it hits the 15% or less, it's true. If it's 15% or more, it's false. And I take everything that's true and I put that in my CRM, in my REI reply, and that's when I put it into the workflow to start reaching out. So my goal is to always be into a deal for 10% or less, all in. So that's closing cost. If it's on market, that's commissions. If I have to pay seller proceeds, all of that, 10% or less is ideal. I do it 15% or less because obviously we're in a stabilizing or downward market. So 15% in equity can easily turn into 10% in equity with one price reduction. So I don't necessarily want to filter out. I don't necessarily want to filter out 10% or less and leave out the 11s, the 12s, the 13s, because a lot of the markets that I'm looking at and that everybody else is looking at, average market time now is 60 days, 90 days, 100 days. I got that house in San Marcos, Texas, and the average is like 90 days. So if I'm only doing 10% or less in my filter and I'm missing the 11s to the 15s, all it would take is one price reduction. Now they'll fall into my filter. That's fine. But maybe if I would have made it a wider net to begin with, I would have caught them already before that price reduction and I would have gotten the deal much sooner. because now if they do a price reduction, now the whole world just saw a price reduction. And so it's going to be a little bit more competitive. So I open it to 15% or less because, again, one simple price reduction. The house in Tennessee, while we were driving home, we get a call from the agent and they did a $50,000 price reduction while we were driving home. So $50,000 price reduction is huge. That just increased that took away over 5% of their equity right then and there. So if my filters were set up, it went from 15% equity to 10% equity on my drive home. So those are the filters that I like with the sub 2 stuff, because again, if it's 15% and it's already been on the market 90 days, I can have that conversation with that listing agent or that seller. Be like, listen, at 15% now, before closing costs, before commissions, before all of these things, you're already on the market 90 days. So you're probably still a little bit overpriced. You probably have another price reduction in you before you start getting any traction. So if I can work out a deal where I'm paying all of those things on their behalf and I can still put some money in their pocket, I'm still in that deal for 10% or less. Because 10% or less, whether I'm buying it myself or I'm assigning it out, that's going to be a win. Like I got a deal in Vegas right now. The guy called me while I was in Tennessee. It's a $500,000 house in Vegas. My all-in paying the commissions and the closing costs is $18,500. I don't have but I think that's like 18,500 divided by 500,000. 3.7% the purchase price and the loan balance. 3.7%. So if I'm assigning that out, I can tack on another 2%, 3%, and the person is still well under 10% entry fee. Or I can keep it myself, and I just got a $500,000 house in Vegas for only 3.7%. All I got to do is pay commissions, and I got to pay closing costs, and now I can take over that property.
And then just have it manage it.
And so now, and I like sub 2 for, a multitude of reasons. That one's a no equity deal. So it's the asking price and the value is pretty much what the loan balance is. So I'm getting it for no equity. But it's okay because the seller literally is like, I want to walk away. I don't want anything to do with this property anymore. It's a turnkey property. But he's like, I just don't want to pay it anymore. It's sitting there vacant. And so I worked out a deal with the agent where the agent's actually going to take a reduced commission or pay closing costs. And like I said, I'll be in the deal for almost 3.5%. And so I'll stick a rent to own style seller finance owner occupant person in there. Because I saw another question from Elix. He asked me why I was selling my portfolio. I've been doing this for a decent amount of time. I've been doing this over 10 years, 11, 12 years. Most of what I've been doing is Section 8 low income. And I'm not burned out, but I do wish that I had better systems in place way sooner in my career. The systems that I have in place now, I wish I had 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, because I'd be in a much better position mentally and just the entire portfolio itself. So I'm getting out because I'm going to reposition my entire strategy. So I'm no longer looking to be a landlord anymore. So I'm going to sell a good portion of my portfolio, and then I'm going to split it. I'm going to diversify 50-50. 50% is going to be seller finance notes. So I'm going to create notes by seller financing properties out. I'm going to buy properties and then seller finance them out to owner occupants. So I'm the bank. I'm not the landlord. I don't want phone calls anymore. I don't want to have to deal with a management company. I don't want to one of my 6-unit buildings has an unknown leak. I don't know where this thing is coming from. The village actually called me 5 days ago. And the village doesn't call anybody. Usually you'll just get a water bill in the mail and it'll be $1,000. You're like, what the hell is this? So it was so bad that the village actually called me and they're like, hey, you have a leak at your building and you should know about it because your bill is going to be astronomical. My management company has tried to find it for the last 5-6 days and they can't find it. And so it's just like frustrating things all the time that I just don't want to deal with anymore. I would rather focus forward and not have to constantly deal with it, even though with the management company and stuff. So I'm going to do 50% seller finance notes. I'm going to be the bank. I'll collect interest. I'll collect the principal. We'll create a note. And notes are great because notes are like real estate in the sense that I have a note and you can do whatever you want with a note. I can sell that note. I can trade that note for another note. I can trade this note for a piece of real estate. I can trade this note for a car if I wanted to. Like, people always, they don't know, but notes are just as accessible as cash. You can do so much with it. So I want to be the bank. I don't want to be the landlord. So I'm going to do that. And then the other 50% will be in real estate, but it'll be on the higher end luxury side. So I'll have a couple single families or maybe some multifamilies, but on like the A class side, stuff that doesn't really cash flow, but it's going to appreciate and have the value, because that's going to be my nest egg for the future. I want, 10, 15 years time, that to be paid off, and that'll be however many couple millions of dollars. That'll be my nest egg when it's time to retire, sell that off or do whatever I want with it. And that'll be the retirement fund. And then the notes will be the cash flow, because people always ask, or they wonder, are you into cash flow or appreciation? And I think I used to be only cash flow. Low income Section 8 is not going to be your appreciation play. You're not going to, unless, for the most part, 90% of the time, it's going to be cash flow. You can buy properties for $80,000, $90,000 that you can rent for $1,300, $1,400, $1,500. The cash flow is fantastic, but you're not going to see a ton of value increase. When I first started, I was all about cash flow. I didn't care if I bought a house for $50,000 and in 10 years it was still worth $50,000. I didn't care. I was like, yeah, but I cash flowed $500,000 in that period of time. Now it's different. I don't know if it's because I'm older or what the deal is, but appreciation is equally as important as cash flow. And I think that's very important for anybody. Obviously, wholesaling is great because it's quick cash. Assigning is quick cash. And so the name of the game in the beginning is always that quick cash, that cash flow. It's great to have, but you need that other thing too. You need to diversify at some point, obviously not in the beginning, build your, reserves up and all that kind of stuff if you want to invest. But there you go, Bob. Absolutely. I think people have been asking me lately why I'm selling, and that's kind of been the answer I've been giving is I'm just a different investor now than when I first started creating that portfolio. And that's basically it. Like, a lot of people are like, why are you selling? Something must be wrong with the portfolio. You must be distressed. I don't think it is that at all. I think it's just I'm a different investor now, and those properties just no longer serve me, but they'll be fantastic for somebody else who's in that space or just starting out or something along those lines. But basically, that's where I'm at with that situation, is just doing it differently. I don't know. I think it's because I'm older. I want to a less stressful relationship with my properties or my structure.
That's great,
it's a
man.
Long-winded answer, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it sure did, Matt. And I actually like, man, you go in detail and you definitely are very, just transparent and like explain in a way that's very understanding for me. And hopefully, I'm pretty sure the crowd as well. Yeah,
again, don't get me wrong. Like, there is a place in my heart that Section 8 stuff, because again, the Airbnb thing is crazy, right? Like, especially in the last 2, 3, 4 years, any property I'm sure that you get under contract, whether you're a wholesaler or whatever, and it's in a decent area and you're sending it out to your buyers, one of their main questions always is like, what's the short-term rental regulations? Can it be Airbnb? Can it be? So Airbnb is a huge, huge part of interest right now. And there's a part of me, Section 8, I think, is such a hidden gem in a sense if it's done correctly. Airbnb, you can download a couple apps on your phone to help automate it, where it like sends out the text messages when they check in, and it kind of does things automated, and it can be hands off. It is. I know it's not, but you have that ability. Section 8, there's no apps for you to download with Section 8 that is going to automate your business in that sense. It is a much more hands-on asset type with the tenant type. You're going to need to be much more invested in the beginning. But like during COVID, when all of the you couldn't evict, the eviction moratoriums, and people didn't have to pay their rent for 2 years, all of those situations that took place during COVID, the landlords that I know, a bunch of them, especially here in Chicago, that primarily had portfolios of cash paying tenants, market tenants. There was people that were not paying rent for 2 years straight. And that owner still had to make their mortgage payment. They still had to pay their taxes. They still had to pay their insurance. There were so many people losing properties because they had a building full of tenants that weren't paying. And the government was telling them, it's okay. The state was telling them, it's okay. Yeah, you don't pay. Screw that landlord. You're the one that is more important here. So my Section 8 portfolio never skipped a beat. I got on-time payments the entire time. Nothing changed in my situation. Rent was 100% on time from Section 8 and from the tenants. So nothing changed there. So it solidified in my mind. I'm like, okay, this is something that if done correctly and the systems are set up, it's huge. You can almost guarantee your income in a sense. Now, again, it's more hands-on, so you got to make sure that you're managing tenants a lot more, because you can make $1,500 a month in income, and you can make $15,000 to $20,000 per property that you purchase for $80,000. But that tenant can move out after 1 year and absolutely destroy your house. So you collected $12,000 in rent for the year, and they caused $15,000 to $20,000 worth of damage. It just erased your entire year of cash flow from one rehab because you didn't manage that tenant properly. Whereas, Airbnb, you're making 3x what you would, and tenants are kind of coming in and out. So it's less wear and tear in a sense. You get those really low months where maybe your property doesn't rent, and it's a lot of that. So it's just, again, being hands-on, being proactive with managing tenants, because they can just be, I have stories for days and days of, especially when I first started out, just happened to one of my buyers' tenants destroyed property. Yeah. And the fact of the matter too is everything is expensive now. So I'm doing a simple rental turnover. One of my Section 8 tenants, I bought the house last year. She was already living there for a year or two. Simple, like 4-bedroom, 1-bath house, probably 1,300 square feet, nothing crazy. She was living there. She just moved out to Texas. She left a bunch of stuff in the house. It pissed me off, but whatever. So I had to pay a guy, junk removal guy, $750. He brought his team there. They junked everything out, fresh slate. Then I had my contractor go over there, my maintenance guy. And just a simple rent ready, it's going to cost me probably like $3,500 to do. So nothing is really cheap in this market, especially with inflation and everything else. So even like your simple turnover stuff can be $3,500, $5,000. And the big ticket stuff, like I had one 2 years ago, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, tenants from hell, Section 8. Again, I got, what you'll realize if you get into Section 8 is depending on the tenant's income and some other things, there is a chance that Section 8 will pay 100% of the rent. So the tenant has a $0 responsibility. So this was a 4-bedroom that I purchased for $109,000. And this tenant poured it in. So they came in from another state, a southern state, I forget what it was. And they poured it in, and I should have known. They pulled up in the driveway. They drove to Illinois from wherever they were from, and they showed up in this van that barely could pull up the driveway because it was just so falling apart. And like 9 kids got out of the car, and it was just a full family. I had just fully rehabbed this house too. I was very happy with the results. I spent probably $15,000 or so, or $18,000 rehabbing the entire house. They show up, and they had a 4-bedroom voucher, which I had never gotten for that house before. And Section 8 said that they would pay $2,279 a month for that house, 100%. So the tenant had they had no responsibility. They didn't have to pay $1. Section 8 was going to guarantee $2,279 to be a month, plus utilities. So utilities were the tenant's responsibility. So Section 8 would pay $2,279, and then they would pay an additional like $225 for utilities. So I just wasn't smart, and I didn't look at the entire picture and go, man, like, you just rehabbed this place. Most likely it's going to absolutely get destroyed with all these kids in this situation. That's probably not good. I didn't do the proper screening. They were there for a little over a year, or maybe just about a year. Worst property I've ever seen when they moved out. They moved out in the middle of the night. I actually had neighbors. When I came there to do the walkthrough after they moved out, I actually had neighbors coming out of their houses to talk to me about the tenants and how bad they were and just how awful it was. The guy next door was cutting the grass for them because he felt so bad. This house was so gross. It was ruined. Ended up costing me, I ended up having to make an insurance claim on it. That's how bad it was. And it ended up being like a $24,000 rehab, something along those lines. Maybe more. I can't remember at this point, but my fault. This was years ago. My fault. I didn't check in on that tenant as much as I should have. I didn't have enough tenant oversight on them. I kind of let them do whatever they were going to do. And you just can't do that with Section 8 and the low income tenants, unfortunately. A lot of them have just never had to be responsible for their own property in a sense. So there is some education in the sense of how to take care of certain things and how to, not damage certain things or what to do and what not to do. And again, I just got blinded by that $22.79 a month. Yeah, what were the kids doing? You should see. Yeah, Kev, I got pictures. I got a Google Drive full of just stuff that's happened over the years. I had my plumber go there, and because they had tenants texted me and they're like, "Hey, nothing. I can't flush. None of the toilets are flushing. All the sinks are backing up. The shower, when we run the shower, every drain in the house was backed up and coming up." I was like, what is going on over there? And so I sent my plumber over there, and they were living their lives. Yeah. So I sent my plumber over there, and he went into the bathroom that was off the kitchen. And he ends up sending me a picture. He ends up rotting out the pipe. He pulled out like 14 Hot Wheel cars that the kid was flushing down the toilet. So parents, they got 12 kids in the house not paying attention. This kid was just in that bathroom with the lid open, just tossing Hot Wheel cars into the toilet and flushing them all. Just kept flushing. Yeah. So my plumber sent me all these pictures. But he had a whole NASCAR team in there. And the plumber sends me pictures and videos of all of them laid out on the grass in the back of the house. And I was like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, man. And I was like, is everything good now? He's like, yep. He's like, this is what it was. So I tell the tenant, and I was like, listen, I had to pay my plumber to come out here, so it cost me the service charge plus all of this. So, this is tenant responsibility. And so I was like, this is your one and only. Now we know what it was. And she's like, oh, I'm going to make sure I watch them. That was my fault. I'm so sorry. They were always respectful. They always said sorry, but they were absolute idiots. I'm so sorry. I come back like 2 days later for something. I forget what it was. I'm pulling in the driveway. And as I'm pulling in, her car is there. And I look in her car. She has a brand new box set of Hot Wheel cars in her back seat that she went and bought them. It was like more toys. So because the other ones were ruined, she went and bought more for the kids. And I was like, am I living in the Twilight Zone? Did we not just go through this 2 days ago? And I said something to her about it. And, so it's just one of those things where it's just a lot of oversight in a sense. Now I have management who helps with that. It's just a lot like any other type of asset type of just a regular turnkey, regular house, you can onboard a management company and they know what to do. There's nothing different than a regular, so you can onboard them and they know exactly what to do. They'll pick up and they'll start doing things. With Section 8, I had to have a full-blown 2-hour conversation multiple times going over all the tenants, different things about those tenants, all of the different tenant responsibilities and structures. And so there's just a lot. And then you got to go through the annual inspections every year. So Section 8 will come out and do annual inspections on each property. They didn't do it during COVID. So now they're coming out extra hard because they missed 2 years. So you're getting flagged for everything. And if you don't pass an annual inspection, Section 8 will pause your rent. So you will not get paid until you pass that inspection. So it's tough because some stuff that you're failing on is tenant damage. The tenant is destroying the property in a certain way, and then Section 8 will come in there and do an inspection, and you got to fix stuff. And you're not going to get reimbursed from a Section 8 tenant. You're not going to get reimbursed from a low-income tenant. They don't have money to reimburse you. A standard market tenant that's has a good paying job, they got a good credit score, all of those things. If they cause $300 worth of damage, $500 of damage, you can get reimbursed for that. That's a realistic expectation for you to get reimbursed. A low-income tenant that, like this tenant that was getting, she had zero portion, her and her family, and Section 8 was paying $22.79 a month. Section 8 is covering 100% of her rent because she has no income coming in. There is no income for her to pay her own rent, so they're paying 100%. If she's causing damage to the property, what can I expect her to pay me? There is no reimbursement there. I can still go to court and get the judgment and all that, but it's just wasted time and effort. I'm paying attorneys, and it's just one of those things. So you have to be more mindful, and there has to be oversight with that. So again, it is a great thing, especially here in Chicago and Illinois. We are, I mean, just like anywhere else, the need for affordable housing is so tremendous here. Cook County, where my properties are at, I've mentioned it before, second largest county in the country, over 10 million people. It's on the top 10 most subsidized states in the country. The amount of subsidy programs we have here is insane. Like I have 5 in my phone book right now that I can call anytime I have a turnover, and my properties could get filled up within 24 hours every single time. I can be on people's lists for sure. That as soon as they get something available, or I send it out, they blast it out. It's 24 hours or less. So it's one of those things where, again, as long as you have the systems, you have the energy, you're committed to it. It's something that you can't be truly hands off with. Not in the beginning, at least. Not until you have those systems and you've learned the ins and outs. But yeah, it's so again, it can be great. Sometimes it seems appealing. You look at the Tom Cruises right? Tom Cruise on Instagram. Yeah. Okay. So we briefly talked about him last time. Like, he's got 600 rental units. I can speak with 100% surety that you cannot have 600 Section 8 rentals, especially almost 600 of those are single families, with 600 and more families, without having the most extensive systems and structures involved with that. Multiple property management companies, multiple levels of property management companies, in order for him to be as hands off as he is. The amount of stuff that probably takes place on a daily basis that he doesn't mention has got to be astronomical. But again, it's a good diversification model that you can do. So again, Airbnb is great. It's got its really, really highs, whatever market it's in. It's got, like in Florida, the winter months would be your highs. That's where you're renting stuff for $6,000-$7,000 a month or more. And then when it's summertime, those are your lows. So you're getting, $2,000-$3,000, whatever the number is, or maybe you're not renting out at all sometimes. So in order to diversify that, like a Section 8 property would be great, because that's guaranteed income. It's great cash flow. So on those low months, you're still supplementing that with guaranteed income. So I'm not saying it's the end all be all, do that and only do that, but it is a great diversification tool for other things as well that kind of mimic and make sense to each other.
So, quick question. What are some of the typical costs associated with owning and managing Section 8? So how does that work with that?
So people always ask me, obviously, even when I first started with Section 8, and I only started with Section 8 kind of by sheer luck, not even luck, but just the first building I ever purchased. The first property I've ever purchased was an investment property. It was a 3-unit building, and it had a Section 8 tenant in there, 1 or 2 of them, and 1 cash paying tenant. 2 Section 8, 1 cash paying. And just so happened that this was 11 years ago, however long, I didn't do my due diligence. I believed the seller when he said, yeah, man, everyone's paying, everything's great, fantastic. Oh, sure enough, right after closing, cash paying tenant stopped paying, made 1 quarter payment. That was it. Section 8 tenants, fantastic. But the question always is low income, like the Section 8 stuff, aren't they like bad tenants? Aren't they this? Everything is exactly the same. With whether it's Section 8 or market, you do the same, expense wise, you would do the credit checks, the background checks, all of that stuff that takes place. It doesn't, on that side of things, nothing costs me more money on the Section 8 side than it would on the regular side. So I'm still now that my systems are different, credit checks, background checks, all of the things that I would do, all the money that I would have paid or charged is getting charged there as well. So nothing really extra. The extra additional stuff comes from when the tenant is actually in place and having that management company, the annual inspections, stuff like that. Like the annual inspection doesn't cost you money, but if you fail, it's extra money because now you failed. So now there's items for you to fix. And then also for them to come back out, usually there's a reinspection fee as well that you'd have to pay. So there's little tic-tac fees there, but nothing more expensive. I can charge, like most of my stuff is single family. So I make tenants pay all of their own utilities. So Section 8 will cut them a utility allowance check, which usually is a max of somewhere around like $225 a month, which covers their gas, their electric, their water, whatever you're charging them. So that doesn't cost me more. It's not like I have to pay utilities with Section 8 where I wouldn't have to pay utilities with a market tenant. I can still charge all of that to the tenants, whether they're Section 8 or not. So it's not really I'm trying to think, nothing additional really. It all just comes down to, if I were to put a dollar amount on my time, if I was an hourly worker, then it would be more expensive because I'm likely spending more time on a Section 8 property than I would with a different type of property, a different type of asset type. So really I would say that's the main and major difference.
I got you. I understand. And those potential tax implications on that, what is for investors in Section 8?
Same income. So you're getting the same income. So like I get, depending on the structure with the tenant, I'll get either one deposit or two deposits. So Section 8, what Section 8 does, and I guess I can only really speak for here. I imagine it's the same, but Section 8, again, there's tenant responsibility portion and the Section 8 portion. Whether you have one property or 100, Section 8 will make a one deposit into your account for all the properties that you have. It's kind of frustrating for me because it's really hard for accounting purposes, but it is what it is. So if I have 20 properties, they'll make a deposit for $25,000, and there's no reference to individualizing which of these. Because the tricky part with Section 8 is, again, more time. So sometimes their vouchers change. So 2 or 3 years ago here, and I think to the entire system, Section 8 received a giant budget cut of a couple $1 million. And so what happened was now there are larger families on smaller vouchers. So it used to be for a 3-bedroom voucher, you might have a 5-person family. And now because of the budget cut, everybody got reduced a voucher size. So if you used to be a 4-bedroom voucher, you're now a 3-bedroom voucher. And if you were a 3, you're now a 2. So now there's larger families on smaller vouchers, which is very frustrating for both the landlord and the tenants. And that was the biggest issue with me is I used to be able to rent a 3-bedroom house to a 3-bedroom voucher, and there might only be 3 people in that house. And now it's likely I'm getting a 3-bedroom voucher that has the size of a 4-bedroom voucher. So I'm getting a 3-bedroom voucher rent, but with a 6-person household now. So it's frustrating for me because I'm getting the same amount of money, but having to deal with more people. And that can be frustrating. And obviously you have to take into like the potential implications of what that can be. You got a lot of damage potential. And so it's frustrating. It's frustrating for them too, because they have a 6-person household that they used to have a 4-bedroom voucher. So they can go get a 4-bedroom house and have more space. And now they have only a 3-bedroom voucher. So now they can only go get a 3-bedroom home or hope that they can work out a deal with a landlord that has a 4-bedroom, because there are, depending, I get it all the time where I'll have a 4-bedroom house for rent, and a 3-bedroom voucher will come to me and say, "Hey, will you accept a 3-bedroom for your 4-bedroom?" So depending on the numbers, yeah, sometimes I'll do that.
Right, and I agree, Brad. Your message in the chat, man, that's kind of messed up, and just makes people cramped.
That's so part of that budget cut as well. Is it used to be before the budget cut, there was rules as well, where you couldn't have. opposite sex in the same bedroom, right? So you couldn't have a boy and a girl, or like a father and a daughter. There was very strict rules and regulations of how the structure was. And now, because of the budget cuts, and there's that insane need for affordable housing, they have too many vouchers, not enough houses. And then they got a big budget cut of a couple $1 million. So now it's 2 heartbeats to a room. That's the new rule. They don't care if it's father, daughter, if it's sister, whoever. It does 2 heartbeats to a room. So Section 8 is, and I feel bad for them. The Section 8 like caseworkers and things, they're just doing what they can. Like, one caseworker probably has 1,000 tenants that they're responsible for. So the caseworkers are so insanely overloaded. They're doing what they can, and so with the budget that they have, and so it's 2 heartbeats to a room, and so they don't. There's some. I mean, again, there's two sides to Section 8. There's more than 2 sides, but the 2 sides I see is there's ugly sides where you go into a house and you got a lot of people living in a small house, and it's an unfortunate circumstance. And you wish it could be better, and you wish there was funding for it so they can get the appropriate sized home that they deserve and that they should be in. And then you see the other side of Section 8 where, I had one where, again, rehabbed the house. I spent 15, 20 grand probably rehabbing the house. I used to rehab houses way too much. The level was too high of the rehab. I used to rehab houses to the point of like, I want to rehab it to the level of like where I would live there. If I were to lose my house, I would move into this house. So I was overdoing the rehabs, and I was really proud of this one rehab. And I had a Section 8 tenant come. She pulled up, and I was like, you can go inside. You know what a house looks like, so I'm not going to follow you around and show you this. You know what to look for. So go ahead and go inside, look around, let me know what you think. She went in. She was inside for maybe 20 seconds, and she came back out. And I was like, is everything okay? Like, how did you like it? She's like, oh, yeah, it's really nice. She's like, I have 6 flat screen TVs. And she's like, there's nowhere, I wouldn't be able to fit any of them in this house. So it's probably not going to be good for me. It's not going to make sense. And then she left. And I was like, oh, you have 6 flat screen TVs. So you see a lot of abuse in the system as well, which is unfortunate because here in Cook County, there's a 2-year waiting list to get on Section 8. So you have a lot of people that truly need to be on Section 8 that have true issues and true problems. And then you have a lot of people abusing the system that shouldn't be on it, that don't belong on it, that, they're pulling up in their brand new cars and they have all the TVs and they got, I've been in their houses and they have just a wall full of, Jordans and gym shoes and clothes. I'm talking like tens of thousands of dollars of clothes and items. And they're on Section 8. It's like, you're abusing the system, and it's generations too. You got a lot of like grandma was on it and they passed the vouchers down, and people that have like 25-year-old kids that are on their vouchers that are still living at home. And so it's a lot of that. So again, it can be frustrating from all sides. And that's, again, why you just have to spend the time. You got to be able to have that time and energy to put into it.
Yeah, and that's definitely a lot of time and energy, especially just building those systems and processes. And that's like the most important.
Yeah. I feel like I've only said negative things about Section 8, and so I don't want anyone to think that it's like, it's super bad. And because it's gotten me to the point where I'm at now, and I'm forever grateful for it. And it's taught me so much about real estate. It's taught me so much about people too. Because at the end of the day, everybody here probably knows as well, when you're making those phone calls, you're making those connections, it's a relationship-based business. It's a psychology. You got to understand people. You got to understand what makes them tick, what makes them move, all of those things. And so it's taught me so much about real estate in general. So I'm forever grateful for it. But at the same time, like I said, I think I'm just different. I'm a different investor now than I was then. And so I think it's going to be great for the person buying it and for anybody else. And like I said, it's a great diversification. And if you have those structures and systems set up, it can be fantastic. Again, you can get $13, $14, $1,500 for a house that maybe costs $90,000, $100,000. And so think about how quickly you can scale in that bit. Like the amount of money that I was bringing in at one point compared to what my portfolio value was rivaled the income that somebody with 2x, 3x my portfolio value was bringing in. So I spent half of what they spent, maybe even more than half than what they spent to get to the income where they were. And I was being able to do it with what I had on mine because of the Section 8 stuff. So there is definitely, there's definitely a lot of positives for it. It's just, again, I'm all about showing you the unsexy side, and just always, I never want to put like that rose colored sunglasses on and go, yeah, man, jump right into Section 8. It'll be great. You're not going to get burned at all. No way.
No, definitely. And it's just like that with even regular, investing and buying and holding with regular single families and multifamilies. It comes with a lot of responsibility, and it has a lot of consequences that can happen.
Yeah, man. It's like I have so many stories. I got a video that I shared not too long ago, and it was one of my tenants in that 3-unit building. I'm telling you, the first floor for some reason was like cursed. It was the same unit when I first bought the building, that cash paying tenant that didn't pay rent, and I had to evict her. It took me like 8 months to evict her. It was terrible. And then every tenant I put in there after that was always like issues. And then I had this guy, again, real estate, if you're getting into investing, just like I should have listened to my gut on that 4-bedroom voucher that moved in for $22.79 a month. I should have listened to my gut on this guy. He was referred to me from another tenant of mine, which, again, the referral it came from, that guy was behind on his rent and was just a terrible tenant. So I should have never even listened to the referral to begin with. But gave me a referral. I talked to this guy. His name was Matt as well. Matt was an ex-felon who had a couple kids. And Matt, was like, I'm a changed man now. That stuff was in the past. I go to church every Sunday now. I have 2 kids. I'm trying to do right by them, and would write me every day and said all the things that, you're supposed to say, wrote me a letter, all of these. I just need a chance for my kids. Should have listened to my gut, said no, but I said, okay, I'll give you a chance. Moved in, I don't know, maybe 60 days in. Problems right away. Stopped paying his rent. It was always a problem, whatever. Stopped paying his utilities. His water got shut off. I have cameras in that building. So I have a camera outside facing the parking lot. And then I had a camera in the common laundry room, which had like the hot water tanks and the laundry and everything. And it faced that. And he would constantly go in there and try to take the cameras down. And he was on drugs, and so it became a thing. So I ended up having him evicted, and I actually had a process server come and serve him his papers. I caught the whole thing on the security cameras, and he thought that by tearing the cameras down, he was going to get rid of the evidence of him being served, and he could just lie that he was served his eviction paperwork. So I watched the entire eviction take place, and then I watched him come into the laundry room, and he's like standing on a chair, and he's looking at the camera, and I'm watching it live, and I was like, this guy, why? I was talking to my wife, I was like, he's going to try to tear these cameras down, watch. And sure enough, he starts messing with it. So I called 911, and I was like, I got a tenant who just got evicted or served his eviction paperwork. He's trying to tear down my cameras. Can you get there? And they're like, yep. And then all of a sudden the footage just went out. And so he got that camera, and then I went to the outside camera, and he went outside, and he was standing on the porch in the back, and he was looking around, and he looked at the corner and he was trying to get that camera too. He was trying to get all the cameras, and then he went back inside, and sure enough, 40 seconds later, the cops come across the back lawn, and 30 seconds later, they're taking him out in handcuffs. And then I drove down to the police department, and his parents met me they were there, and they're like, please don't press charges. We'll clean out his entire unit for him. And he caused a bunch of damage to the unit, and it was just, my cameras were like $2,000. And so again, it can be great certain times. I was able to build my portfolio because I owned real estate, and I was able to do cash out refinances on them and, build it bigger. But again, wholesaling is great for its own thing, and investing is great, and owning real estate is great. But again, just know what you're getting yourself into, know what kind of asset you're buying, what kind of people you're going to be dealing with, and just be prepared for the ins and outs, and, just be prepared for that learning curve. I've had a a lot of situations that have happened to me over the last 10 to 12 years where I looked at the situation. I was like, oh, this is where I go bankrupt. This is where I lose it all. This is finally hit that situation. And freaking out for that, moment, and then taking that breath and going, all right, you're not going to go bankrupt. How are you going to figure this out? What are you going to do? And thankfully, KYS comes back into play. Know your shit. Because I know my shit, because I've been around long enough and I have that experience and I have those tools in my tool pouch. Thankfully, I've been able to figure out every situation so I don't go bankrupt and how I don't lose it all and how I don't, all of those things. And so it's important to have all of that before you get involved, and then always just, stay learning during that process too.
Man, that is all really great. It's getting around 7 Eastern at this time. I want to open the stage up for anybody that wants to ask any questions to Matt, if that's okay with you, Matt.
I apologize. I have not been paying attention to the chat, so I apologize to anybody. If anybody has any questions, for sure. You can ask it in the chat too. I'll go through it and see if I see.
I think you've done pretty good. I've been keeping up with the chat. You seem like you've answered a lot of the questions that were asked.
Do you have any control over who rents from you, who goes through Section 8? Yes. So same as your market tenants, when I put up a property for rent, I have a few websites that I use. A couple of them are specific to Section 8. There is a website that used to be called gosection8.com. Which has now been bought and is now affordablehousing.com. Actually put that into the chat. And affordablehousing.com actually allows you to get access to people with vouchers. So what you can do is create an account on affordablehousing.com. You can just do it per month, and there's different options. It's like $69 a month to like $99 a month. And what you can do is you can create an ad. So if I have a 4-bedroom, I create the ad, I put the pictures up the same way that you would do like on a Zillow or whatever it is. What's great is you create the ad, and then they have a section where I can search vouchers. So if it's a 4-bedroom house, I'm going to search 3 to 4 bedroom vouchers. I'm going to click that. I'm going to filter it. Then it also has every city in Illinois on that website, wherever that property is. So I can click each and every one, whichever one I want that makes the most sense to where that property is. And now it filters all of it out. So now I'm seeing 100 people. I have their email address, their phone number, what size their voucher is, and I can select all and actually do an email blast to all of them and include my ad in that email, and then I'm reaching directly out to voucher holders. So I'm not making an ad on Zillow and then hoping and waiting for people to come to me. I'm proactively able to go get those Section 8 tenants and wait for those responses. So what I've done now at this point is, over the years, I'll have 1 unit for rent, and I'll get 100 people that are interested in filling out applications and giving me their information. So obviously I can only choose 1. So I'll choose 1, and then I keep the rest in my own database. So I can use that system. I can use affordablehousing.com for 1 month, select 500 people for 3 and 4 bedrooms, and now I just have them in my database, and then I can cancel my account. So now the next time I have a 3 or 4 bedroom available, all I got to do is just blast email the contacts I already have, and now I have that internal system already in place. So, but even if you don't do that, like I said, it's like $69, $79 a month, and you actually have access to actual voucher holders instead of just, like I said, making a post somewhere on Facebook Marketplace or Zillow or wherever and waiting and hoping people come to you. You can go to them and you already know what voucher size they have, when they need to move by, their email and their phone number. So that's been huge for me the last like 7 to 8 years, is building that database and having access to actual voucher holders.
That's awesome.
Can one get Section 8 with no kids? So Section 8 goes to there's, like I said, especially here, there's subsidy programs for everything. I've rented to, what was the name of it? It was basically women of past domestic abuse relationships. I don't remember what her name was at this point, but basically the whole premise of the subsidy program was women of past domestic abuse relationships were put into this program, and this program would pay 100% of their rent for 2 years. And after 2 years, they were supposed to be at a point where they could go get employment, or at least be in a position to show that they're trying to get employment. And so the woman that I rented to for those 2 years, she had no kids. It was just her solo. And that ended up not being a good situation. She was not a great tenant, and it was bad. But there's definitely plenty. I had another guy. There's a program out here called CEDA, Chicago. I don't remember what it is. CEDA. They're based out of the city. It's similar to Section 8, but they have less funding and kind of less loopholes that you have to jump through. I rented to a guy. His name was Steven for 5 years. He had no kids. He rented one of my properties. And so vouchers go as low as studio. So a studio level apartment, all the way up to 6 and 7 bedroom vouchers. So a studio could just be one person. Out here we have, military, like veteran subsidy programs for military veterans. So that's usually 1 or 2 people, usually one. It's usually an older veteran. We have a homeless one through like Catholic Charities. So it's trying to transition people from being homeless into homes and into like work life. So that's a really good one as well. So there are so many. Like I said, there's no reason for a property to sit vacant if you're open and willing and wanting to do a Section 8 or subsidy program. There are so many. Like I said, if you have a certain heart and you want to go and help homeless people, there are so many programs for that. Like I said, transitioning from homeless into the workforce, fantastic. You have a soft spot for veterans. There are so many for veteran subsidy programs to help veterans get off the streets or get into employment. And so a lot of them are the apartment buildings, like the 6 units out here in the 4 bedroom, or the 4 units to 6 units that have like studio to 1 bedroom units in them. A lot of those are veterans units, and usually it's like the older guy that's 50, 60, 70 years old. So I like those. I used to, when I first started with Section 8, I was like, I want the biggest house with the biggest voucher. I want all the money. I want the 5 bedroom house and the 5 bedroom voucher. I want the $3,000 a month. And then enough of my houses got torn up, and I was like, I don't want that at all. I'd rather have 6 unit building with 1 bedroom units that I could put 1 person in each unit and have them on a subsidy program. So I'm getting guaranteed rent. It's only 1 person. So they're not, the likelihood of them beating up that unit is very, very small. I'll take that all day long instead of a 4 or 5 bedroom house that's got 10 people in it where I'm having to do stuff on it all day long. So that's always something to look at too with Section 8 is what kind of I don't have a lot of patience. And so, especially for that type of stuff. So I'm more like, I'll take a little bit less money for that peace of mind. And I only want 1 person to deal with, as opposed to, like I said, a 6 to 9 person household. That person that was paying $22.79 a month with Section 8, that was a 9 person household. And she got pregnant while she was there. So they had their 10th kid, or their 8th kid in that property. It's too much. Me.
Good. Do you get the same amount of rent for your apartment units in comparison to houses if bed and bath is the same?
Yeah, so Section 8 only cares about bedroom count. They don't care about bathrooms. They don't care about appliances. They don't care about anything. Here in Illinois, in Cook County, they have a set payment standard sheet that gets updated every single year. So they already have a 2023 payment standard sheet that you can find on the Housing Authority of Cook County website. And it only has bedroom on it. They don't have anything else. What they're supposed to do is just like a similar comparable, like if you were comping a house, they're supposed to compare. Like, so let's just say for round number's sake, it's a 4 bedroom house. And it has a max 4 bedroom voucher amount of $2,500. That's the most that Section 8 will pay for a max voucher. There is a chance that you'll get less. And if you get less, you can provide them comps from the MLS. What they're supposed to do is compare your property to similar properties in condition as well. Does that always happen? No, because caseworkers are not appraisers. They're not licensed appraisers, so they're just going off of whatever they're going off of. But with Section 8, you're only concerned about bedrooms. Obviously, it's your preference if you want a three bedroom, 2-bath, just for like resale value and stuff like that. But Section 8 will pay solely based off of bedrooms. For sure. I have a property I need to get rented out in AZ. Do I, as the owner, need to do anything with Section 8, or the driver is the tenant in their voucher? Yes. So, Erica, if you want your property to be Section 8, you don't have to do anything explicit. You don't have to do anything more than what you would usually. I always say Section 8 inspections are similar to FHA. If anybody here is familiar with FHA and what takes place with FHA, when you do an FHA inspection for a loan, it's similar to that. So they just want to see the globes on all the light bulbs. They want to see smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. They don't want to see chipped paint anywhere, especially in houses prior to 1970s, because you could have lead paint. They're going to want screens on all the windows. They're going to want to make sure that your appliances are all in working order, no leaks in the plumbing. So they're going to run some water and make sure there's no drips coming down from the plumbing. Just standard items like that. So what I used to do is I would buy a property that I had planned on making it Section 8, and it would need a rehab, and I would go full blown on the rehab, and I would spend $15,000, $20,000 on the rehab, and then find a Section 8 tenant, and then Section 8 would come and do their inspection and still find items. And the great thing with Section 8 is when you fail an inspection, when they come back for the reinspection, this is very important. When they come back for the reinspection, they cannot conduct a new inspection. All they can do is come back and only look at the failed items. So they can't come back and find new items. They can only come back and look at the items that failed and if they've been fixed or not. So that's very important. When I first started buying properties, I would rehab like crazy, 15, 20 grand, make it perfect in my eyes, and then find the tenant. And then Section 8 would still come in and find stuff, stupid stuff. So I'd still have to waste time having them come back out. I'd still have to waste time fixing stuff. So what I did then, instead, from now on, is I buy properties. I kind of know now what needs to be done and what not. But if I'm even remotely like, I'm not sure if I should fix this, because I never want to spend money that I don't need to spend. So I'll find a tenant and then have Section 8 come out and do their inspection, fail. That's fine. Now I have the failed list. Now I know exactly what I need to fix in order to pass that inspection, instead of doing it blindly before and spending $15,000 to $20,000 doing it. Now this list maybe is only $2,000. So I just saved myself over $10,000, but now I know exactly what they're going to come back out and look for. So I'll just fix these items right here. And then if I want to do anything extra, I can do that or stop here. So that's been the biggest thing that I've changed in that aspect, is don't over improve. If you're even remotely in the middle of like, should I do this? I don't know if they're going to pick this up or not, or I don't want to overdo it here. Come out and fail it. And then if they fail it, you have the list and you know exactly what you need to fix at that point, and then you're not overspending any money then. And then again, if you fix that list and you want to go past that list, you absolutely can. But at least you know bare minimum, this is what you need to do in order to pass. Fail fast.
That is exactly. Really smart, man. That's being resourceful right there.
Section 8 can take that's a lot of people's gripe with Section 8 too, is sometimes it takes a while from start to finish, from the time finding the tenant to the time that they're in there and you're getting paid. So Edwin said it pretty decently, where fail fast, because you don't want to waste more time and you're going to have them come out and do a reinspection if you fail. So just find that tenant, have them come do the inspection. Know you're going to fail. That's fine. As soon as that inspector comes, you're going to have that fail list, and then you can get to work right away. Call Section 8 the next day and say, hey, I'm ready for my reinspection. Schedule it. They'll be out in a week's time or however long it takes in your area, and then they'll come back out, and then you're good. And then they send it to the department it needs to go to, and then you can get that tenant in there right away. So that's, again, if I'm buying a turnkey, beautiful property, I'm going to do that anyway. And if it fails, I've done it where they fail me for like a burner. You have 4 burners on your stove and one of the burners wouldn't light. So they failed me for something so stupid like that, where I had to now waste a week and a half of my time having them come back out. And, so sometimes you just can't help but fail, even when you think you're going to pass. But again, if I'm even like, I don't want to spend the money, and what if they don't even pick anything up and I wasted time and money fixing all this, let them just come out. Find your tenant, tell your tenant, hey, I'm going to fix all this. It's going to be nice. Don't worry about it. Let them come out, fail fast, have them come back out. And now you've only spent what you needed to spend.
We got Samuel T asking if you do you work with wholesalers?
I do. So now I do. When I first started, I had a bad outlook on wholesalers, and I've gotten much better here in the recent years. But I definitely had bad outlook on wholesalers, so I would never do it before. But yeah, definitely now, especially if it's somebody that understands Section 8 and knows true. Obviously, as we all know, as wholesalers, if you guys are wholesalers, giving somebody, when you get a property under contract and now you're pitching it to your buyers, if you're giving them like repair estimates and estimated rental amounts, having accurate information is obviously very, very important. So if you are a wholesaler trying to work with Section 8 investors, making sure, KYS, you know your shit of what you're telling that buyer, that Section 8 buyer, when you're giving them like the rental amounts and all of those kind of things, because we're not going off of, whatever system you use. If you're using Zillow for your rental estimates or rentometer.com or wherever you're pulling rental comps from, we're not necessarily using those. Those are market rates. Those are different than Section 8 rates. So making sure that you understand where to pull your rental numbers from to give accurate